The following episode is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Bonjour, Kinamagi and Nene Ireland Indigenous, and welcome to today's social studies lesson. Today's topic from iCivics, gerrymandering. If your first thought is, well, who's Jerry and is he a nice guy? You're probably not that different from many of the voters throughout our nation. But because I want you to know that it's more than just Jerry, our good friend down the street, let's begin with the definition of gerrymander. It is a transitive verb, not that you're really worried about that right now, to divide or arrange a territorial unit into election districts in a way that gives one political party an unfair advantage. Every 10 years, we conduct a census in the United States, and the result of that census impacts how many districts each state gets. Sometimes a state might gain a district, sometimes a state might lose a district. As part of all of this, we take the data from that and we have to create congressional districts. So if this was your class project and you were working for the state, you would be asked to take all of these people and put them into different congressional districts, with each district containing equal amounts of people, and they must be contiguous. That means they have to touch, at least in one little spot. It means no splitting or breaking up a district. It sounds pretty easy. Let's put them by county lines. But in a state like Michigan, there are millions of people in just a few counties in the southeast corner and far fewer in the far northern counties. So let's talk about what packing it means. So sometimes you try to draw them so you have equal numbers of people, but in favor of your political party, in this case, the red party. You notice in the red party, they have 1, 2, 3 dominated areas, whereas the blue party only gets 2. So that gives them a majority when it comes to voting on laws within the state. Whereas if you just did it like this, the blue dots would win every single district. So that's very important to understand. Same number of districts, same number of people. In this case, the red party controls the levers of government by just drawing straight lines. The blue party does. That's why they fight over this literally every 10 years. And they come up with some very interesting regions here. Let's look at a map of North Carolina. I'm gonna make this just a little bigger here, or try to. And you can see in here, some of these contiguous regions are very small, very narrow. This first district looks like it has fingers or legs, or it's one of the droids in a Star Wars kind of movie. In Michigan, you can see that our districts, we have a huge district, but there's not a lot of people there. But then you start seeing districts that have odd shapes, like this one apparently is holding a cup. And you can see this is our district, goes from all the way over here to over there, down to here, up to there. And these are drawn every 10 years. So let's read the text. If you're more interested in just reading this point on, you're welcome to pause the video and do the read or continue along with us. If you're wondering what the House of Representatives has in common with salamanders, save the guess about spirit animals. Your legislator probably didn't take that quiz. The answer has less to do with magical animal wisdom and more to do with voting in districts. When congressional districts are drawn to favor a particular political party, it's called gerrymandering. Let's take a look at how this practice works. The district factor. How many representatives does your state send to the House? 53, 18, 1? States with just one representative don't worry about gerrymandering, and you'll see why. If you're in Virginia, you send 11, but a single Virginian doesn't cast a vote for each of those members. In states with more than one representative, representatives are elected in single-member districts. Each state is sectioned into districts with equal populations. Capturing the same amount of people in every district makes sure that densely packed urban areas have the same amount of voting power as rural areas, with lots of land and fewer people. This is what it means to have one person, one vote. Everyone's vote is supposed to count equally. We elect one representative per district. Each representative serves roughly 700,000 people. It's in the bag. So where do we mark the boundary lines for these equally populated districts? Good question. Here's another. Which political party would you want to win the majority of your state's House seats? In a state whose districts have been gerrymandered, state legislatures draw congressional districts in a way that gives one political party an advantage over the other. How do they do this? By packing voters who tend to vote one way into just a few of the state's districts. This decreases the chance of those voters changing the outcome of elections in several districts. They can also draw maps that crack districts. Cracking involves dividing like voters across multiple districts until they're outnumbered by a majority of voters who will vote the opposite way. The results? Illogically drawn districts at times resembling the shape of a salamander, a seahorse, or a fire-breathing dragon. When it comes to party affiliation, these gerrymandered districts can create safe seats, districts that tend to always elect a Republican or a Democrat, no matter who the candidate is. Well, what's the big deal? In a gerrymandered district, everyone's vote isn't really being counted as equally as others because that district has been pre-designed for the majority to outweigh the minority. You're probably wondering if gerrymander is okay. How could this manipulation go unchecked? Why doesn't Congress do something? If you owed your seat and your party's political control over the budget and legislative agenda to gerrymandering, would you be so eager to write a bill against it? Remember, you'll probably lose next year's election if you do. People like to win, and let's face it, it can be hard to get someone to give up a little bit of power. Proving partisan gerrymandering in court can be difficult. To date, the Supreme Court has not ruled the practice unconstitutional. So the media's role. If the media didn't cover stories like gerrymandering, would the public even know what gerrymandering is? Well, yes, it's not like the media is the only source of information. Some people do an excellent job of looking into issues for themselves and stay informed. But the greater public is much more likely to know about an issue if, and when, it's receiving media attention. Gatekeeper. For most of us, paying attention to the media is how we stay informed about what's going on in the government and the world around us. But as a citizen, it's important for you to realize that there are many serious events and issues you will never hear about on the news. That's because the media plays a role when it comes to public influence. In its role as gatekeeper, the media decides which stories and issues are important enough to receive public attention and which aren't. An hour-long news broadcast can't cover every issue that there is, and a limited staff running a news website can't either. Each news outlet has its own criteria for deciding which stories get through the gate and into the public eye. And for the most part, those decisions are based in some way on business, views and revenue, and bias, opening the gate for some stories instead of others. Because of its role as gatekeeper, the media is largely responsible for deciding what society discusses in the public sphere. That means the media also determines which issues are on the public agenda, which is the to-do list of issues the public agrees are a priority. An issue won't get on the public agenda unless it is being discussed in the public sphere, and it won't be discussed in the public sphere if nobody has heard about it. If you're noticing that your friends and family all seem to be talking about and weighing in on the same issue lately, it's probably because it's receiving a good amount of media attention. Watchdog. As a watchdog, the media helps to hold our government and those in power accountable. By placing stories in front of us that expose and alert us to wrongdoing, misconduct, or inequity, the media keeps us informed when something is happening that shouldn't. Scandal. Corruption. You're kidding. Injustice? What? If it's happening, the media will be reporting. In fact, the term gerrymander owes its name not just to the Massachusetts governor, Albert Gerry, who signed the bill allowing the strategically drawn districts to go into effect. See, Gerry was a person, just wasn't down my block. But also the Boston Gazette. In 1812, the paper published a story with a drawing that made the district look like a winged mythical creature. And you see the picture here on the right, where my mouse is. The story was satire, which means it used humor and sarcasm to poke fun at what Governor Gerry had allowed. But entertainment aside, the story also informed the public about how the new district boundaries purposely gave Gerry's political party a clear electoral advantage. And in the state of Michigan, in recent years, we have actually voted to have an independent commission start drawing these districts in hopes that gerrymandering will no longer be such a large issue. Being that part of this lesson was about the media, I'm going to ask you to complete this worksheet. Each of you will receive a copy, or there will be a version of it within our Google Classroom. Newswatch. What did the media deem newsworthy today? Explore the front page of a newspaper, if you can get a hold of one, a news website's homepage, or listen to the top stories from a televised news program. Right? Which stories are being covered and what role the media plays in telling them. Like I want to cover the newscast of what that noise was from that vehicle. Include the name of your source, whether it be a TV channel, a news website, a news program, Tribal Observer, and summarize the top 3 stories. So what was the story about and what was a brief summary of the story? Try to keep the summary to a sentence or 2. And I want you to do that for 3 articles or stories. Or is the media keeping watch on anything today? What is it? So are you seeing a common denominator in the stories? Do we seem to be talking about politics or sports or weather? And 5, how did today's news coverage make you aware of new events or issues? Like, did you hear about something that you didn't know before? Again, this worksheet will be available in your Google Classroom and also will be sent home as part of our packets for next week. Well, without further ado, I'm going to find some light as it is falling close to night here in my front yard, and I hope you all have a minute of Gishagad. Bamapi.